Ryan Ries from Southern California. This is Live with Ryan Ries. Call now 1-888-564-6173 or post your questions using the hashtag Live Ryan Ries on his Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook.
What up, what up? Tonight we have a very special show. I have one of my very good friends, brother, family, Sonny Sandoval. He's the throat and the lead singer for POD. So if you just tuned in, we have a rad show of, we're just going to be talking about his life, his journey of him starting the band POD when he was young and to where he's at today, following God, just being a light in the world, which a lot of people are scared to do. So I admire this man. He's been a huge influence in my personal life. So why don't you go and welcome Sonny. Sonny, how you doing, sir?
What's up?
I know. We have Sean McKeehan also chilling in the studio.
What's up, guys?
As always. And we have Justice. I don't know if the mic's hooked up yet, but we have Justice chilling. So, Sonny, first of all, dude, you've been a major influence in my personal life. I remember when I found the Lord back in 2008. We knew each other from the industry. We crossed paths before, but then when I found the Lord, I remember texting you, and I don't exactly remember what I said, but it was something along the lines of like, I left Circa, my old job, and I'm chilling at my dad's church or something like that. Do you remember?
You said you're helping your dad out.
I'm helping my dad out.
So I knew as soon as you said that you had found the Lord and you were helping your pops. You weren't all Christian and religiously like, I got saved, filled with the Holy Spirit, and you're just like, I'm just helping my pops out.
Yes, and that was a crazy time in my life because, people so easily they find Jesus. I found Jesus high on cocaine. 9-day cocaine binge in Costa Rica, but I found him in this hotel room and I gave my life to God. And at that point, a lot of people, it turns into a crucial point to where you could get involved at church, but then you could go you could follow this whole institution of the church and become like a corny Christian, or you could follow Jesus Christ and live that spirit-led life and be like one of the disciples that weren't institutionalized. They were totally punk rock, and they were who they were created for. They didn't get caught up in the new fad of Christianity, the new dressing, way they didn't follow the fads,
Right.
They and for me, when I gave my life to you, or not to you, to Jesus, when I found you, Sonny, when I gave my life to God, you were a key person in my life because I just started just watching you. A lot of people, when you give your life to the Lord, people just watch. And you were there for me, and we hung out. We went to Israel, and obviously we'll talk a little bit about that later on. But just watching your life and just seeing how you were following God, you weren't caught up in this institution of the church, and it really just inspired me to fall in love with a God in a relationship like that, and not go just fall into the flow, the routine of things. So I thank you for that.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
And you've had major impact on my personal life, and you know that.
Yeah,
you're a brother.
it.
Love you, dude. So. For these listeners that are listening now, they let's just hear your story. How did this whole POD band start? I mean, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in South San Diego, literally 4 or 5 exits from the border, and I grew up in a young family. My parents were already, I can't even remember when they split. They were all just teenagers when they had kids. And I come from, my grandmother's from Italy, my grandfather's from Guam, Hawaii, all mixed up. So, we grew up in the South, hardworking family. I was raised up Catholic. And I just, that kid from a divorced family, just trying to figure it out. My family was young, so they were still doing a lot of their partying and, doing what they do. My uncle, my dad, my mom, they all sold drugs and just partied with all their friends, And we just came from that broken, dysfunctional family, but it was normal to us, I had my friends there on the street. Always felt love, always been loved, by my family. They were just young and chaotic, and they were without the Lord, And then my Uncle Noah, he was separated from my aunt, which is my mom's sister at the time, and he was suicidal and lost, and I think he was ready to kill himself, and the Lord led him to Mike McIntosh's church, which I go to this day.
Down there in San Diego.
Down in San Diego, yeah. And when he had his little theater church in downtown San Diego, and the Lord found him and started working his life. And my uncle was crazy, you know what I mean? So when he got saved, he kind of came to the family and said, I found Jesus, and
so people are like, what the heck?
You know how that is. That you're
too
crazy,
many drugs, man.
Your crazy friend who's all strung out and like, I found Jesus.
Yeah.
So yeah, whatever. But he did, man. He, it wasn't this radical religious thing. He just said, God said He's going to restore my family and get me back, and everybody just watched him, and sure enough, it happened. The Lord restored his marriage with my aunt. My aunt got saved, one at a time in our family. People just started getting saved. Like God was picking them off, My mom got saved. So I watched them, and they would start going to church and Calvary San Diego.
And wait, how old are you at this time?
I think I'm
high school.
Yeah, or junior, early teenager.
Okay.
So I would go to church once in a while. My parents wasn't like she was forcing me. You know what I mean? But I always had love and respect for God. Like I said, I grew up in a Catholic home. My grandmother, she's a saint, Catholic saint,
Yeah.
And so I always had respect for God. It was just more of a religious thing. You go to church when you do. It wasn't like this everyday thing of knowing Jesus and loving Him and having Him in your life. And so I just started to watch my family change. And so, like I said, I always had this respect because I knew, man, if God can change my family, He's got to be real. There's something real to this, you know.
You've seen literally. I mean, you have I know Uncle Noah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's sober and he's a psycho man.
He's still psycho.
He's still psycho.
Yeah,
so you're seeing, like you said, you're seeing Jesus pick off one by one in your family, the way He normally works too. You start praying for family members, and all of a sudden, next thing, they start getting saved.
Yeah.
And you're seeing this work because I know you've told me like your parents were a young rock and roll family. Moving drugs, slanging, and that whole having people over. So this is a whole party atmosphere.
Yeah. People coming and robbing my house, looking for drugs.
Yeah, I mean, so it's just like crazy. And what's interesting is, in California, 50% of kids come from broken homes.
Oh yeah.
So how many people that are listening to this right now are in that same situation where you're at? But God started moving, and He started just transforming your people, your family's lives, and you're just tripping on this, watching it.
Yeah, mostly my mom. She was a sweet woman, and I just watched the Lord move in her life. And then as a teenager, you do what teenagers do. I had a lot of friends. I still have today, just hanging out, surfing, skating, get into trouble with them. Trying this, trying that, and I made it through high school. And then when I was around 18. Right out of high school was when my mom was diagnosed with leukemia, and that just kind of took its turn. With her, she went through remission and chemotherapy, radiation, all that stuff. But that's when I really started to. I mean, I was still getting high with my friends and going out, but that's when I really started to see the Lord working in her life. Because here I'm ready to rebel against anything of God because I'm watching my mom suffer, but yet she was praising God the whole time,
That's what I was going to ask you. Like, did you get bitter at God during this time, or what was going on?
Not at the time. I think I was just more questioning why she was the one going through this, yet she was finding peace in this. You know what I mean? Why was she so happy? And I think I was more worried and afraid and angry than she was.
Yeah.
And so she went through all her stuff, went through remission. I remember seeing her, hanging with her in her hospital room, and she would have like the worship guy from our church come in and worship, just play worship songs so she can sing. And I just remember thinking, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, that is kind of funny when you're not a Christian. You're like, what is this?
But you can see the joy, you know, and
genuine,
genuine, man. And that's what, you know, that's what I look for in Christians, man, is that I want to see that kind of genuineness that my mom had, you know, because it was real and it wasn't, she was never, you know, she was the real deal, you know. And she went through remission, came home, the whole nine, and, you know, I thought I'm still doing my thing and I'm happy now. She's doing better. And then one time I'd come home, hanging out with my friends and stuff, and you know, we had went out and smoked and hung out, and I came back and she was sitting there waiting for me, you know, outside my room. I was trying to sneak in, and then she just sat me down, and then, you know, she just told me that she could tell I was sad, you know, and I was unhappy. And she just, you know, she says, you've lost that love in your heart, you know. And she said, I just want to know when I die that you're going to be in heaven. You know, you and your sisters are going to be with me. And I remember telling her, Mom, don't talk like that. You know, you're not going to die. And she's really, you know, when you look back hindsight, she looked at me like if she was looking in my soul and giving me a heads up, you know, and telling me, no, I'm going to die. And I need to know this. You know, I need to know that you're straight with the Lord, you know. And I was like, yeah, Mom, whatever you want me to do, you know, I'll do it. And just tell me. And she invited me. Harvest down in San Diego with Greg Laurie.
What year was this?
Oh, man, this is like...
In mid-90s?
Mid-90s, yeah. I would say even 93 maybe.
Dang, so this is pretty early.
Or 92 maybe. No, 92. Maybe 91. I don't know.
If you just tuned in, we have Sonny Sandoval, lead singer of POD, on the radio, just talking about his story on just growing up in San Diego and just dealing with his mom that's fighting cancer, and just talking about how he started POD. So, well, yeah, what were you saying?
Yeah, and so she invited me to Harvest Crusade down in San Diego, and I went. You know, I thought it was awesome. Greg had given amazing. He talked about the Lord, and it was cool. A lot of people went forward, but it just wasn't. I wasn't moved yet to make that commitment. You know,
so it wasn't like you didn't feel that conviction, like you needed to go forward.
Well, you know, you in my heart, I believed I was saved. You know what I mean? Because my family was saved.
So you're saved.
Yeah, I had gone to church with them, and you know, I participated in some things in youth groups. So, you know, I'm sure I had asked God into my heart at some point. You know? Just thinking. I remember one time, my friend Chuck, he came from a Christian family, and I remember him like, even as a young kid, making me accept the Lord. You know, you have to, man. You have to ask God in your heart. He came from like a Pentecostal church. You have to ask Jesus in your heart, man. I remember standing on my street back in the hood. Jesus, come into my heart.
Can't get out of here.
He was gangster back then. You know? So in my heart, I thought, yeah, dude, I love the Lord, man. I got no problems with him. You know, it was just like you said earlier, just having that relationship with them. But sure enough, you know, I kept hanging out with my friends, doing my thing, and I had went to. We used to go to concerts all the time, like then punk rock shows. And at the time, there was this band called The Crucified, and they're awesome group. They were Christians, you know. And I remember going to Soma's; it was packed, and I would just go to all these crazy shows just to pit with my friends, just to get that angst out, you know, have some fun. And I remember going there, and I had liked The Crucified. I think my cousin and Marcos had dragged me a couple times before, and their pits were awesome. But at this particular show, I remember at the end of their shows, they always sang the same song, and it was United by Christ, and where they started chanting, you know, United by Christ, United. And then I'm looking around, and all the people in the crowd are singing, and right there, I was a part of the pit the whole time, but as soon as they started chanting, I felt like I wasn't worthy enough to chant with them. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't. I didn't know what that meant. You know, I wasn't.
You're like,
I wasn't one of them. You know.
Yeah.
That's how I felt. Like
that's interesting.
You know, I was too much of a sinner. Maybe these guys were all perfect. You know, and it's what you think in your mind. You know, and sure enough, I remember going home, or actually going to continue the party with my friends at their house. And the next day, just we had partied, and I was supposed to go visit my mom. She had went back for some checkups, and they were going to keep her overnight because she wasn't feeling good. And I remember calling that day, just tired and stuff. And I said, "Hey," I checked my mom, and I said, "Hey, I'll come back in tomorrow. I won't make it tonight." And she was like, "All right, that's okay, son." And then my aunt had called me later, or paged me at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I called her back, and she was saying, "I really think you should come down here." I was like, "What do you mean?" She said, "Your mom's not doing good." And I'm like, "She just told me, she was good." And she's like, "I just think you need to get down here." So I had went down there to the hospital, and I went into the hospital room, and she was shaking, and she was cold.
Dang.
Yeah, and it's whatever. It just happened like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember her, eyes lighting up, and she was so happy to see me. And then I was just tripping because I'm, what the heck? I just talked to you. You just told me stay home, and sure enough, that night she would kind of slip into somewhat of a coma, and that's kind of just when everything started. And then that whole week, I was there for a week.
So this was like a long.
Yeah, it was a long period of time. She kind of just slipped in, and it was like, what the heck? And then the doctors, they were doing their tests, and then a couple of days later, they're saying they're thinking she's gonna go, and the doctor would come in the nighttime and say, just be prepared. She might not make it through the night, and then she would make it through the night, and during the day, he'd say, be prepared. She might not make it through the day. And this was going on, like I said, for a week. And then one day, they would come in all the time, and the doctor came in the morning. And mind you, our family's sleeping in the the hospital at this point. I'm in the room with her. She's she can't speak, she's just kind of there comatose. And one morning he comes in, and the doctor says, because at this point he'd been repeating himself every day, every night. Yeah. And then he finally said,
so she can't talk. She's just laying there. She can't talk.
She's just, And so we were just expecting her to go at any time. And the doctor comes in, and he says, and at this, when you think back hindsight, it seems so unprofessional of him to say this, but this is when I know it's the Lord,
Yeah.
Because he comes in and he says, it's not, we don't have a medical term for it. He's like, but we call it mother's heart. It's almost like he was just giving me, his heart perspective, trying to soothe the family. And he said, we call it mother's heart. And he says, your mom, she's pretty much ready to go, but she keeps holding on, She says, what keeps the body alive is your heart. I mean, he's saying this is so unprofessional. You know what I mean? This is just like him, being a, caring person. And he just says, it's the heart that keeps you alive. And then he says, the reason why she's fighting and the reason why she won't just let go is because she doesn't want to leave her kids behind. What doctor would how does he know that? Why would he say that?
Yeah.
And so instantly I'm sitting in the back of the room, and I'm having this flashback of when I came home and had this conversation with my mom, and she was saying, I'm going to die. I just want to know that you're going to be in heaven with me, you and your sisters. And it instantly just hit me, and it was like, oh man, she's holding on, and she's suffering because she's afraid to let go because I don't know the Lord, I'm not going to be in heaven with her. And so that had me just bugging out. And then my family had forced me to go home because I had been there all week.
So that was just you. That wasn't your whole family when the doctor talked to you.
No, we had like my grandmother, the close, tight knit.
You're having like a revelation.
To myself.
It's like God speaking to you through this dude.
Yeah, God, who knows what the Lord was speaking to everybody else. But to me, it was, like I said, I was having this flashback and this conversation with her. So my family makes me go and get cleaned up. I don't think I'd showered all week, just stuck in this room with her. And so I had got out into the parking lot, and I was just sitting in my car in the parking lot forever, and just trying to process all of this. And then that's when I really just cried out to the Lord, and I started talking to God, and I said, Lord, if you take my mom, like she's all I have. I had been through so much with my mom, divorced. It was for the longest time, it was always just me and her, So I remember just telling the Lord, if you take my mom, I don't know what I'm going to do. You know, I'm going to lose it. But and trying to make my mom proud or happy or whatever, that thing, you know, remembering our conversation, you know, I had literally got down on my hands and my knees in this dirty parking lot. And I just asked God, please come into my life, cleanse, you know, take away all my sins, you know, just the whatever I can think of,
Yeah.
you know, please forgive me. But what I do remember is I just remember, you know, asking God and saying, please, I want the Jesus that my mom has, you know. I don't want this idea of religion, you know, and what I thought was Christianity even at the time, you know. I just said, I want my mom's Jesus, because to me that's what was real. It wasn't this churchy thing. It was the Jesus that I saw inside of her.
Yeah.
And watched, you know, this Jesus that changed her life and my family's life. So I said, please, God, I want to be like that. You know, I want to be like my mom. And please, you know, I don't want her to suffer. And I had went home and cleaned up, and I'd come back. And when I got back to the hospital room, you know, I just hugged her, and I whispered into her ear. I said, go and be with Jesus. You know, I said, I'm going to be okay. You know, I'll be all right. And then later on, again, family was flying in. Family was coming to see her. You know, my mom, she was a loved woman, you know.
Yeah, totally.
And people were coming, and then in this just getting lost in the moment, I think we had gone to go get something to eat to bring back to everybody. And I remember driving away, and then my girlfriend at the time, Shannon, who's my wife now,
Yeah.
we were driving away, and I remember saying, wait a minute, what am I doing? Why am I leaving? Wait a minute, I have to stay. And she was like, just you need to go. Let's just go, get something to eat for everybody. And then when we were driving back to the hospital, I remember my uncle, one of my uncles who had flown in, actually, or come to visit, was outside. He was smoking a cigarette, and then he just started shaking his head, and then I knew, you know. And so I literally jumped out of the car, ran, busted through these hospital doors, you know, ran through the hallways, and then just walked in to the hospital room, and she passed away. So then she literally took her last breath, knowing that, you know,
That she was waiting for you to give your life to
I
God.
was squared away with the house, you know what I mean? And so that's, you know, then you think back again, hindsight's like, the Lord was in it the whole time, you know. And I do remember hugging her and holding her, and what had seemed like 5 minutes, hours and hours had gone by, where literally, you know, the hospital was telling my family, we got to go. And I remember glancing at the clock, I think, and just hours had passed by, but it seemed like it was so crazy. I was in some time warp, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And at that night, it was just like, okay, what's next? And so, you know, she went to be with the Lord, and it's been a journey ever since. I was 19 at the time. I'm 42 now. It's been a journey with the Lord. My ups and downs, my imperfections, my struggles, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And all these years later, you know, I'm still saying, you know, I want my mom's Jesus.
Yeah.
In this
absolutely.
crazy world, you know.
Absolutely.
If you're tuning in right now, this is Live with Ryan Ries. We got our good friend Sonny Sandoval in studio from POD, and we just on this first half of the show have just kind of been going through his life. I don't know how many of you people know what he's gone through in his life, and Sonny's just really opened up how, you know, his family, you know, from a crazy background, then God began to touch some of their lives, his uncle, and then even his mom, and then him just opening up to us the struggle of his mom having leukemia, and those moments that she would just pour into his life, just very impacting, you know. And as we go on with the rest of the show, you're going to hear a lot of things, but this is definitely a life-shaping moment in his life. Whenever I think of Sonny and hearing the story, because this guy's the real deal too, man. Me and Ryan love this guy. We know all that has taken place in his life, and it is definitely a story how God just works in our life supernaturally, very naturally. Like, it's just like he starts putting the pieces together in our life. He uses our loved ones, or he uses circumstances and situations, even when we have our guard up, you know, you have your guard up towards like, you know, religion and all this kind of stuff, and you don't want any of those things that you have seen like a bad taste. But when you see something that's legit and genuine, and you do inventory in your own life, you recognize something is lacking. That's when God can really like come into our lives like He has in all of our lives and reveal who He is.
It's crazy when I mean, I couldn't imagine. You know, my mom's obviously been dealing with cancer, fighting cancer for the last since I got saved. I remember, and dude, it's so gnarly to be going through that, and a lot of people are going through it or lost someone or in the process of it. What would you like to say? Because we have I think only 4 more minutes before the break, but to people that are listening that have maybe they're going through a situation or maybe they just lost a parent, what would you say to them that for comfort?
Right, man. I think that's where faith really kicks in, man. You know, like I said, you don't know it at the time, but God, He's in the details. You know what I mean? He knows what's going on. That's when you really do trust the Lord. It doesn't have to make, I mean, we want it to make sense to us, but, you know, in God's scheme of things, sometimes it's not for us to figure out because the Lord knows what's up. And obviously, you know, through my journey of walking with God, you see that, man, if God didn't use my mom and she didn't have to go through this tragedy, I probably wouldn't be walking with Him today. I know I wouldn't.
Yeah, see,
for sure.
I know that, you know.
That's crazy.
So, and I wouldn't have, you know, spent the last 23 years, you know, with my brothers in POD and been able to do and experience all the things we've done. And, you know, I believe God has used us, you know, as wretched as we are, as sinners as we are, to make music and to change a lot of people's worlds, you know, and to share the love of God and to share our testimonies. You know, and I would have never been in this band, or I wouldn't be here today making music. You know, it wasn't in my plan. So it's funny how God uses those things and does something that you never even could have thought of or even dreamt of. You know?
Isn't there like a verse that says you make beauty out of ashes?
Oh, yeah.
There's some verse like that. I mean, and I think about like, you know, it talks about James, how, you know, when you go through these trials and tribulations, God's using these situations to create Christian character, like your character, to build you into a spiritual giant in a sense. He flexes your muscles and he builds you up, even though, you know, these situations are crazy, like painful, but we don't understand, but we have to trust. And the verse I hate, all things work together for good for those that love Him. I love that verse when everything's going good, but when my world's falling apart, and it does.
It does.
You're like, okay, all things work together, but this is not cool. I'm not psyched on this verse right now, but we know it when you look at the whole scheme, like you said, like you look back from the last, how long's POD's been around?
Going on 24 years.
24 years. You look back at the last 24 years, because you started, we're going to get into how POD started, but basically you look back at the last 25 years.
It's been awesome.
And these things, these milestones that happen in your life, they produce this character in you. And that Jesus that your mom had, I've never met your mom, but I'm pretty sure you have that Jesus. I know you, and I think because when I'm with you, I'm like, dang it, dude, I need to be like Sonny. He has more compassion. He's nice to people. I mean, not that I'm not nice to people, but you got that, like, I don't know. You got something that I need more of.
Well, you know what another thing is like when he talks about like when a major tragedy or a trial happens to us, it's at that moment like where you can choose to be given over to bitterness, or you can have that moment where you see the frailty of life and God can change your heart. And that's what you said. Like, there's a part of you you're bitter when, you know, a loved one's going to die and stuff. You read biographies of a lot of people, you know, even some famous people, they lose a loved one and then they get bitter towards God. You know, they blame God and they run from God most of their life. But when you realize that, like, I love that verse, all things work together for good for those who love God according to His purpose. Like, God does have a plan. And what the enemy, at the midst of our trial, he wants to bring discouragement and confusion. But the Lord can always bring, man, redemption. He can restore the heart that's been broken, for sure.
Okay, cool. Well, we're going to be going to break here in a few minutes. I have Shine that goes off every Thursday and Sunday night. You can go to ryan-ries.com and get that info. We'd love to see you out there. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
More Live with Ryan Ries coming up.
Everything all right?
Call now 1-888-564-6173 or post your questions using the hashtag #LiveRyanReese on his Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook.
I think I speak for the entire administration when I say whoop-de-doo.
Now, back to Live with Ryan Ries. Don't say we didn't warn you. Loud noises!
Cool, we're back. We got Sonny Sandoval. He's the throat. He's the lead singer of POD. And, this last section, we were just talking about how, he grew up down in San Diego and grew up in a young family, rock and roll family. His parents were, involved with the party scene, just like many people maybe that are listening now, and just not walking with God, and crazy things happening. His wife or his mother got leukemia. And during that process, God used that for him to find Jesus through his mom when she was on her deathbed. And he gave his life to Jesus. And now here you are. You're at a place in your life. You're young. How old are you? 18? Not now. No. How old are you now after this point when you gave your life to Jesus in that hotel or in that parking lot?
I was 19.
So you're 19.
Yeah.
You just got out of high school. You're dating Shannon, which is your wife now.
Yeah.
And now you're not. Are you in a band at this point?
No.
Okay. So how in the heck did POD even start?
I was working. I was at the grocery store. I think it was even just working night crew at that point. Was going to some community college. When my mom got sick, I dropped out. I was like, I'd been working since I was 15 years old, and I was always going to shows. My cousin's a drummer. Marcos is a guitar player. They were
Your cousin's the drummer.
the POD, yeah.
POD, right.
But at that time, they were just, it wasn't called POD.
Yeah.
And then I had gotten saved and was just working. And I guess, my cousin had this wild idea. I found this out later, but
Wait, were all these guys Christians at that time?
yeah, man, I used to go to their shows, and I would always go there and get in the pit and ready to defend them, because they would get up and tell in these backyard parties or play with these bands, and they'd get up and say, hey man, we're Christians and it's about Jesus. So I was always inspired by them already.
No way, that's awesome.
And I would just go because I just had their backs. Like if anybody, because at that point we play with skinhead groups, all kinds of different, and there was stuff always popping off.
Sure.
And if you get up and say you're about Jesus, that's like
you're looking for a fight.
You're looking for a fight, And so me and my friends, we were always backing them up because they were the homies,
Yeah, for sure.
And So anyways, I guess my cousin had told Marcos, hey, man, let's ask Sonny. Because Marcos, he was singing, and this was like a three-piece and playing guitar at the same time. And at that point, they were like, let's ask my cousin if he wants to sing in the band. And because they wanted to do something different, and I was always into reggae and hip-hop.
Right.
And they were like, we can try something different, kind of this metal, thrash, punk with some rap and hip-hop type vibes. And Marcos was like, Sonny, like, that guy never even talks to me. Dude.
Exactly. Well, if you don't know Sonny,
Yeah, pretty chill.
you're a quiet guy.
Yeah, I would never.
But then it's like it's like when I see you in concert, I see people you're around, you're real quiet, and then even you're kind of soft spoken. But then at the concert, it's like you take a pit bull to a ring, and then you like unleash the pit bull, and he goes on stage and, and then you put him back on the leash and put him back.
Yeah, it's
psycho.
But see, that I just think that's something that is special between me and the Lord. You know what I mean? It's that He gave to me. So they had asked me if I wanted to, be in the band. I was like, this makes no sense.
Yeah.
Because I don't even like hearing my voice in microphones. I don't jump in the cameras. I'm not that guy. But at the time, I had taken a little. They gave me some time off from work, and at the time, my uncle Noah, who came to the Lord, he had a landscaping business, and this is when In-N-Out Burger was still very new. There was only one scattered here and there.
Yeah.
But he had gotten offered to do the In-N-Out Burger in Fresno. And so I had taken off. They gave me like 2 weeks off, and he said, well, come up to Fresno with us, do some landscaping. And so I was helping him out in Fresno. And then come, on a Wednesday night, it was like, oh, we're going to go to church after work. And there was Calvary Fresno. And so we had went, him, myself, my cousin Wov. And here we are. And, there's barely anybody there. It's a Wednesday night, Fresno, Calvary Chapel. And we're just sitting around like strangers, never been there. And then
and then you guys all walk in. You guys look like a bunch of hoodlums. You guys, see, this is the interesting thing about you guys. You guys were covered in tattoos from a young age. You started getting your tattoos.
Started getting them.
It wasn't like that like back
then.
No.
Yeah.
And especially Christians.
Yeah,
with tattoos. That wasn't even really like popping at all.
Yeah, unless you were.
They were wearing spandex in the '80s. Like Striper. These guys.
Yeah, that was back then.
So you guys show up. You guys look like hoodlums.
Yeah, we're there hanging out. Trying to go to church on a Wednesday night, and sure enough, we're just sitting there. And then, like I said, there wasn't that many people. But then here we see these two guys walk in. And I'm staring, and I watch them walk up, and they sit down, and it's Jim and Chaffin and Jeff Ballou. It was the drummer and the bass player for the Crucified.
No way. How many years later is this?
This is
from like the last time you seen him at like Soma or
this was like right when my mom was sick. So I would say within a year, a little over a year.
That's a trip.
But these guys asked me to be in their band, and I was like, nah, I'm not, that's not really my thing, but what's the typical? I'll pray about it and see what happens. So here,
still praying.
Yeah, I'm still praying. So I go and work with my uncle and my cousin, and then here comes these guys, and we met them, said what's up, and then to me that was kind of confirmation from the Lord that is full circle. From when I was there watching them play to my mom, getting sick and passing away. And then that night, my cousin, I told my cousin, I said, I think I'm supposed to be in this band, And then I think we sat in the hotel room and then started, I got a piece of paper and pencil and started writing lyrics to our first POD song. And then we had the
POD was still their band. So we had come home from In-N-Out working. We told Marcos, hey, we're going to do it. Yeah.
And so we started jamming.
That's amazing.
That's nuts.
That's amazing. So then when did the name POD come into effect? What?
I think we started jamming, and we were all sitting in the room, trying to figure out a new name, new band. And then my sister-in-law, not then, but now, she had...
Who?
Terry. She was working at a bank. and she had said, a bunch of names had come out, but at the time, everybody.
Do you remember any of the names? Because this is this is information people want to know. These this is like the back end.
Yeah, I don't remember. I do remember though. At the time with like Metallica, Slayer, there was all these one-word names. Yep. We were like, it can't be a one-word name. It's got to be a couple, words, and it has to sound tough, has to sound mean. And back then, our music was pretty heavy. I mean, it still got heavy roots to it. But
you got some heavy stuff.
Yeah. So she had said, "Payable on death." It was a banking term. Maybe she had typed it up that day, and.
So your sister-in-law, Terry.
Yeah. So
That's amazing.
Yeah. So payable on death was a banking term when someone passes away. What they leave behind, say like their will, their goods, all their stuff.
That's dope.
And so we related that to Jesus dying on the cross, and we weren't out to have this spiritual name, but it was still sounded tough. Payable on death still sounded tough. And if anybody asked, we could say, hey, it has to do with Jesus.
But you know what, dude? That is
That's
dope.
awesome.
Payable, because I didn't know. I always just POD.
Yeah.
Payable on death.
Payable on death, yeah.
Dope. And then even obviously the spiritual meaning it makes it even that much harder.
Right. And I think we just got tired of saying, or when you were asked, hey, what's your band's name? Payable on death. It just got tongue twister after a while.
It is kind of a long
POD. Let's shorten it up, POD.
Yeah.
And then that was it, man. We just played around San Diego, all the friends' parties.
Doing a bunch of just live shows and stuff?
Live shows, man. We weren't even 21, and we would play a lot of these bars, so we'd have to sit outside until it was time to play. Then we'd play, and they'd kick us right out. And then we just kept playing, man. Mostly backyard parties, a lot of the straight edge parties down there. And we would just do our thing, and it was such a different sound at the time that we were just getting a lot of love around San Diego, and we just kept doing it.
I know you were because Uncle Noah. You guys would get in his van, and he was like your tour manager. I mean, he was like he was just getting you guys going. Like he was like get in the car, we're touring.
Yeah.
And you guys even you guys played some churches.
Yeah.
You guys played a couple, and tell the listeners the story of. Remember the one where 1, 2, 3. Tell them that story.
Well, we were playing most, like I said, backyard parties, like these, wherever they let us, right? And at the time, I'm.
And wait, what year? Because I want to be careful with these years. I want to know. So when you were doing this, what year-ish was this?
I think this was the end, like the end of '92.
Okay, so now think about the place that the church, the kind of music,
right,
and what was going on. People were not covered in tattoos.
No,
this was not hip. So these guys are
DC Talk was like
the
hardest thing ever.
Okay, DC Talk.
But see, I didn't even know. Because you gotta understand, I just became a Christian. I didn't know all this stuff.
Neither did I. Exactly.
To me, there was a Crucified, and I knew they were Christians, and so I had. There was a couple bands like these. I can get with this, you know.
But Crucified, they were going around touring. They were in like a lot of churches. I mean, this is like hardcore music.
No, they were
at that time.
Dude, they were opening up for like Pantera back then.
Yes, they weren't doing the church tours.
No.
The state of the church of Calvary Chapel back then.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the pastors, the way they were dressed.
Yeah, there was no way. These guys, but these guys were good.
I know,
man.
my dad's a pastor. I remember the way they dressed.
Yeah, no, these
guys look funny.
These guys were a band, man. They were in demand. They would play wherever,
Yeah, totally.
And at the time, again, we weren't saying, "Oh yeah, we're a Christian band." Like, I didn't know what that means. I still don't know what that means. We were just a band. We were playing everywhere.
Yeah,
we had got invited to play at church, so that was my first eye opener of like, they want us to play at a church? Like, we're playing clubs we can't even get into,
Yeah, bars and stuff.
Yeah, they want us to play at a church. Like, I didn't know that was allowed. I didn't know you can do that. And we had got invited to play at church. I think it might even been like Marcos and Gabe's church at the time, and but they were doing a youth group rally. Like I said, we're right next to the border, so all these kids were coming in from out of town, and they were staying, big youth group night at this church, and then they were going to go to Mexico for the weekend or whatever and help with the orphanages and do a little missionary trip.
Awesome.
And so they invite us, and then we play. And we're just doing our thing. We had it's funny because now that I remember, we had all the homies. They're all these gangster cats. They're not even saved, but again, like I was before, they're backing us up. They're standing on the stage all hard, looking all thugged out. And then
first church.
They're probably the first time they've ever stepped in church, So we start to play, and we get through half the song. And mind you, this is a church, dude. So we're talking the stepped stage.
Oh, yeah.
Carpet church.
Oh, yeah, step stage.
The step stage where the podium usually goes. And we started playing.
Why do they have step stages?
I don't know.
What?
Typical church protocol, I guess.
What's a step stage? I walked
I don't
down.
know why.
You're gonna have to Google that and see.
I want to know why.
Yeah.
All the Calvaries I go to,
we just have a
they
flat
step
stage?
I told my dad, I said, when they were redoing their church, I said, get that steps out of there. Close it. Why do you guys have step
They
stage?
should just angle the church that way, so maybe so you can see the.
Hey, you know what?
pastor.
It's a crazy world we live in now too. We got all these Muslims coming in, pulling out guns and stuff. Close the step.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
But we started playing, man. And I think we made it halfway through the song, and this guy, I think he was one of the youth group leaders. He literally
he was freaking out.
He
probably.
rushed the stage, but it's funny.
he
'cause
ran up the steps.
He tripped over the steps.
That's why the steps were there.
Yeah. You have to make it. But the kids were all like, at first you're just sitting there like typical youth group kids, and then as soon as we cranked up, this was live guitar. This was heavy. You could see their eyes literally just pop out of their heads like, what? This is awesome, And then all of a sudden this pastor runs up, and he's just like giving us the quit signal, and he starts grabbing mics, and I think he grabs my mic, and he
Just grabs it out of your hand.
grabs Marcos's guitar and just like, no, we can't do this, and we're looking at him like, what? Because in the back of my mind, like, you invited us.
Yeah,
What?
exactly.
What's going on? All the homies are in the back, like, what the heck? And then he
Clueless.
just says, we can't do this, like, because he just believed in his heart this wasn't of God,
Yeah.
So he basically tells all these kids, because they were just shattered. At this point, they were shattered, like, what
Yeah,
the
the
heck?
kids are like,
so
"What?"
embarrassed, And then he just said, hey, we can't do this. We're not going to do this. But hey, guys, let's give these guys 5 crisp ones. And instantly, like robots, you just have like hundreds of youth group kids just like
Clapping.
yeah, just 5 solid crisp ones, dude. And then I grabbed the mic from him, and I said, hey, don't even trip, man. Like, we're not tripping. And I just said, this has nothing to do. I care less about music or this band. It has nothing to do. This is about you guys. We just came here to be a part of what you guys are doing, And I said, you guys are coming from out of town into my neck of the woods. You're going across the border, and you guys are going to help out those that need help. And
Yeah,
I said,
it's awesome.
that's Jesus, And so we love you guys. Because at this point, I'm 19. We're close in age. These
You
are
guys
just
are kids
kids.
at
We're
this
kids
point.
ourselves.
Yeah.
So I just said, hey, man, keep doing it. And sure enough, man, we packed up and left. It was that was our first experience with church. And at the time, like you said, we're tattooed. It's full guitar, loud volume.
Yeah.
But that was, like I said, we had already been playing shows, and we got invited to a church. So at that time, amongst the guys, it was just confirmation to us that we weren't made to play inside
God
a
was
church.
calling you
Yeah.
guys to the world.
Exactly. We weren't supposed to play for Christians,
Yeah.
Whatever that was. Like I said, I didn't know what that was at the time, and then you realize, oh, there is a whole scene, there was a whole industry, but we didn't know that because we were playing the clubs. We were playing, we were opening up for bands like Green Day and Cypress Hill that back then were blowing up, and God was opening up doors for us to play because our music was good. It wasn't like we had to play for whatever, a packed out church. We were getting invited to go play in clubs.
And
That's
that's you know what,
crazy.
and that's so true. God calls us to different places. Like for instance, I don't get invited to speak at a lot of churches, but I get invited to speak at tons of like rehabs that are not even Christian.
Oh, yeah.
God opens these doors, show up, and all these people get saved. It's like I'm like,
yeah.
good
Yeah.
God, you open the doors.
Well, because it's the language. I think you speak, we speak. How many times have I been with you speaking at a church, and it's like we've gone to some Baptist church, we've gone to some conservative churches, and you just know right off the bat, like they're not that they're not gonna hear us, but our language is different.
Right.
And the moment you get up and you start talking about whatever God puts on your heart, I can look around and look at these pastors and these, it's like, oh my goodness, we didn't know we were getting into this.
But the problem is,
But it's
this
the
is
truth.
the state of. I'm in touch with the culture.
Yeah.
I know what the kids are going through.
Yeah.
I'm doing high school tours. I know
Right.
what's happening.
Yep.
And I'm basically saying what everyone's thinking.
Yeah.
But for some reason, we got in this box of like, this is the institution. This is the
Right.
language that we use in the institution of
Yeah.
the church.
Yeah.
I was talking to Billy Graham. You were probably with me. We were talking to the Billy Graham director, Paul Saber, and he said, hey, You know, it's not the church, it's the institution.
Yeah.
You guys aren't anti the church. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no way, because we're all the church. He's like, you guys are anti the institution. He goes, I agree.
Yeah.
You know, it's the institution. We become irrelevant because we're caught in this this protocol, whatever it is. But you have to have
Yeah.
yeah.
And our church, but and in our church too, man, and it is a safe zone. It's become a safe zone. It is for when you need safety, but it's you know it's a war zone. You know what
Absolutely.
I mean? We people, you know, we get so comfortable in our churches that who doesn't want to stay in there 24/7 and just, you know, be safe.
Absolutely.
But it really is. I always refer to us being out in the world as a battlefield, and our churches are these are just medic tents, man. We come in, we spend time with the Lord, we allow God to heal us and get our rest. But then if we're in the real world, we're called to go out. You know, trust me, I'm out so much on the road. It's like I desire
to be
when I'm at church, you know, and I sit there with my wife, and you know, it's like I love it. I feel like this is my safe zone. I can just be here, and not be Sonny from POD. I can just sit here, listen to my pastor, worship the Lord, and just get restored and refilled. And then when it's time to go, it's like, you know, I don't go hopping and skipping like, yeah, man, another tour. I go out like, all right, you know,
You're
but because, you know, how many times have I asked God, like, when's it done? You know, 23, 24 years later, Lord, what, just let me know when you want to wrap this up, you know, and I can move on to the next chapter of my life. But every time we go out, it's hard, even as hard as it is today. It's harder today to tour. It's harder. The industry is crazy. It's, you know, the industry's broke, but yet I still see God doing awesome things, and it's like, okay, I got to go out one more time, you know.
Well, I've known. I mean, I know you guys blew up huge at in the late '90s, like '99, 2000.
2001 was our
like
big
massive,
record.
like
Yeah.
massive, huge. And you guys. I mean, you guys were massive. And there were some things that happened, maybe just over time. Let's talk a little bit about when you guys blew up. Let's talk about that time when you blew up, and then that led into some situations where you ended up kind of stepping down.
Yeah.
We got about, I think, like 10 minutes left. So
Okay, awesome. So same thing. We started POD. We played locally. Never had any thoughts of going.
One sec. I just got notified. We have 5 minutes left.
Okay. I never thought we'd go outside San Diego, you know. And then we did a little demo back in the day. You know, we did a couple 3-week tours during our summers while we were all working, and we were playing shows, you know, out in the U.S. And I think around 96 or so, we were starting to get asked to play all over the place. And so we all made the decision, like, that we'd quit our jobs. It felt like the Lord was moving, something's happening. And we just started going out on our own and doing our own thing in the U.S. And then that would eventually lead to us signing with Atlantic Records.
Right.
And then our first record, you know, went platinum. And our second record, which was released on 9/11, you know, and then we happened to have a number one song at that point on the TRL, MTV, the rock radio station. And so, like you said, things just skyrocketed. And we were touring, 13 months out of the year.
Yeah.
And again, always with the intentions of going out and just loving God and speaking about Him in our music. But, you know, now a whole new industry has opened up, a whole new world. Here we are.
Absolutely.
From playing little clubs to, you know, sold out
Stadiums.
just with, you know, and then now playing on stages with some of, you know, the biggest bands in the world, meeting them. We're friends with them now, you know.
Ozfest.
Money, yeah, you know.
You
all of
played
a sudden
in
our bills
downtown-
are paid.
You played in downtown New York where they dropped New Year's Eve.
Yeah,
when
New
they dropped,
Year's
I mean, you
Eve.
guys were like,
Yeah, bringing in the new year on
Yeah,
MTV. And,
exactly.
you know, our bills are paid. Life gets a little bit easier. And so all those struggles come. And so now, you know, still having this intention of going out and trying to share the Lord with people, it's just a whole new obstacle, you know. Here we are, and people start, you know, you start getting all the things that rock bands get, you know, and it's like, wow, this is real. We're not just this like little quote unquote Christian band going and playing in a church anymore. We're a rock band.
They're like, whatever you want. You want green, you want a trash bag full of green M&Ms?
Yeah.
Done.
We're a real rock band with
Yeah.
with real temptations, real struggles, all this stuff, you know, and then you start going through shady business and egos and people, you know, guys quitting the band and us firing people and just all this stuff that rock stars
enemy,
do.
basically getting in.
That you're like, you forget why you're in it, and then you continue to go, and you know, so you just kind of, for me personally, I can only speak for myself, you know, you just get lukewarm, and it's like you just start living by this motto of, man, God knows my heart and I love him, but you're gonna try and get away with whatever you can, you know, and then eventually you just kind of are just living that life, you know, your distance from the Lord begins, you know, because you're not seeking him all the time. It's just this, God's got my back. I know he does. I'm just gonna keep pushing through.
But you could just do this just in regular life too.
You could do that in regular life. You don't have to be in a
concept.
rock band. So for me, you know, all this stuff's happening to me, my guys, and it was just, you know, so come around 2008, what you were talking about earlier, that's when I just said, I just needed to take a break, and I just asked the guys if we can take a break for a year, and I just needed for me to go and really seek after the Lord and just get my heart together, you know, and that's what I did, man. That's a whole other chapter of stories when me and you hooked up again, and was blessed to go to Israel, and
that's
whosoever.
when you stepped down from POD, and that's right when I got saved, and that was a whole other God thing. We went to Israel, and that's where you gave the name to me. You said I see like a movement of a name called the Whosoever's, a movement of these people around the world coming together to reach people for Christ.
Yeah.
Because you really saw the world around. I mean, by this time you've traveled all over the place. You've seen so many young people, and you're like, man, the world's a mess.
Yeah,
right?
For sure, man.
You've been there, you've done that, and that was exactly where I was at in my life. And even with Head from Korn, he was in that place in his life where we've all been there, done that, and there was nothing that was going to take us back to the world.
Yeah.
We've seen it all.
Yeah.
And even today, I can care less about the cares of the world.
Yeah.
Being rich or famous or any of that.
Right. It's so empty, man.
It's ridiculous, man. Well, we got a minute left, man. You got anything you want to say to anyone that's listening out there?
What else?
I know you've been talking. I don't know. Maybe, you know what? Here's something. Someone that's maybe in a place in their life where, you know, maybe they grew up in the church, or maybe they're just driving down the radio and they're listening to this thing, or they've seen something on Instagram, but maybe their question is God real? How do I even like give my life to him? What are the steps to follow him? What does it even look like? What do I do? I got a drug problem. I got issues. What do I do?
All those things are right where they need to be. You know what I mean? This is when you're just called to just give it up and trust in God. There's nothing we can say that convinces you until you actually take that step. The moment you take the step is your first act of faith, where you're saying, Lord, I do want you in my life. I want to see. So we've told this to kids all the time. You challenge the Lord, man. Challenge the Lord. See what he can do for you. Let him come in and clean house.
All right. Well, there you have it. Sonny Sandoval, lead singer of POD. We'll catch you guys next week.
Peace.
Love you guys.
This has been Live with Ryan Ries. To connect or find out more about Ryan, click on ryan-reese.com. Check us out next Saturday at 9 p.m. for Live with Ryan Ries.